Watch Autoline After Hours live at Autoline.tv every Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. That's 12 p.m. Pacific. You can subscribe to this podcast for free by searching for Autoline in iTunes, Stitcher, or YouTube.
Autoline After Hours is brought to you by Bridgestone Tires, solutions for your journey.
Gary, have we got a show today?
We sure do. Let's just start it.
Yeah, bring in Mark Royce, Carmen. There he is. Mark, so great to have you back on the show again.
Gosh, it's been a while. It's been a while since I've been able to see you.
I know.
John and Gary. It's great. It's great to be here, and it's great to see you. So
we've got a great opportunity here, and I want to kick it all off by saying this show, I really want to get into GM strategy on electric vehicles. So take us back a few years, if you will, Mark. You guys must have had some sort of meeting, the brain trust of General Motors, trying to figure out where is this all going. And I'm intrigued by the strategy that you came up with, hence doing the show today on this. You guys said, yeah, forget hybrids, forget plugins. We're going straight to EVs. Take us back a few years. What year was that? 2018, 2017? How did you guys come together on this strategy, and when did you do it?
Yeah, I think it was 3 years ago, John, that we really had been we had just we're getting out of Europe with Opel, right, and a lot of the diesel emission stuff that was going on there with not so much us, but the whole industry was it gave you a lens into the end game for us anyway, and so we had really looked at electric vehicles, and for many years, actually all the way back to EV1, right? I mean, that's really our first, and we built plenty of R&D concepts around electric vehicles too, but EV1 was sort of the first commercialized, retail unit that we leased. And then we followed it up with things that were hybrid based, and the Volt and the Bolt, of course. So we did hybrid SUVs. People forget about that, but we did. So it was really we really got a lot of experience with that, and a lot of software capability on the control systems for that, and the integration of it, which are not easy things to do. People think, well, electric vehicle, it's got to be a lot simpler than an ICE vehicle. Well, not really. It's there's a lot of subtleties. And so when Mike Simcoe, who's our VP of design, we put together what an all-electric GM would look like. And we did that in the Dome. And Mary and I and the whole leadership of the company and all the engineers that were involved in looking at what it would take to do it were there. And so we went through the first architectures to be Ultium. And we looked at what those would give us from a design standpoint and what the segments are that we wanted to compete in. And, I've said from day one, if I had another dollar of R&D, I wouldn't put it into a hybrid system. I put it into a battery chemistry and what it takes to get a higher energy density at a lower cost. And so that was about 3 years ago. And we said, we're going to do that. And we came out and said, we're going to go all EV. And we're not going to invest in any, midterm steps for that. But we're going to do it in a way that we're dedicated platforms, because we have enough experience on sort of the derivative platforms that were made EV, if you will, except for EV1. And those were really tough from a SCAR standpoint, engineering-wise. So what I mean by that is that an ICE platform would carry a lot of different things that were accommodating different powertrains transmission and engines at the time, a lot of different chassis, a lot of different regulatory requirements around the world because they were global platforms. And so we looked at that and we said that can't be the best way to do this. We need a dedicated set of platforms and really derivative off of one core battery vertically integrated system called Ultium. And that's when we did it.
So to that point, Mark, with EV1, you guys were clearly ahead of the game from any standpoint. I mean, from any company anywhere in the world. Okay, if we fast forward to approximately now, you've got a variety of new entrants into the EV world, and you've got Ford, who's come out with the Mach-E and will shortly have the Lightning out there. So doesn't this sort of put you in an awkward position that you've gone from being at the leading edge of things to, by having this strategy of being purpose built, like a follower rather than the leader?
Well, I think when you say a follower and a leader, you're getting at maybe a media perception of when things are introduced. But if you look at the speed of Hummer, it was 2.5 years. If you look at the fact that we brought ahead the Lyriq by about 9 months, you could say that I'm not sure those entries are the same entries at our competitors. And so these are for the long haul. And, whatever right now, right? But the scale that we'll get sooner than lots of people will be in the plants that we put in that are almost done and ready to start producing, like Lordstown, that cell plant. The first cell plant's almost ready to go. I can't say that about a lot of other people. The second cell plant will be in Spring Hill, Tennessee, alongside the Lyriq, of which I was down the other day, and we're putting the walls on it, so that's getting ready to go. And then the third one will be in Lansing. And so, we announced that here a couple of months ago. So, the scale is coming very fast for us. The pipeline is full of products that are dedicated products that will get to price points that I'm not sure our competitors have, things like a $30,000 Equinox. That's what we're doing. We're not doing this for now. We're doing it for the next 5 to 10 years. And, I'll take that all day.
Mark, your time to market on these EVs is really impressive, but I got several questions about it. Number one, what are you starting the stopwatch and where are you stopping the stopwatch? I think that's key in terms of measuring how quickly a program's done. And then what the heck did you guys do to do these things so fast?
Well, I think, great questions. I start the stopwatch when we sat in my office with Josh Tavel and Doug Parks and Mary Barra. And this is pre-COVID, obviously. So we were in an office, downtown. And I said, we need to do a Hummer. And I don't know if you watched the Hummer documentary, but that was day one. Okay. So that was day one. And the end was when we started producing here before the end of the year, which that's what we said we were going to do. And so that was about 2.5 years. So that's how I count it.
So that's at least a year out of a normal program compared to the past, right?
Absolutely. And your second question, like, how'd you do it so fast? Well, that's what we can do when we get dedicated platforms in place and vertically integrating things like our cell chemistry, and we get things in place like Factory Zero, right? Don't forget the factory piece of this. Our ME in manufacturing is a huge competitive advantage for us. And so we took what used a factory that made everything from CT6s to Volts to everything else, Impalas, you name it, Cadillacs for many, many years. And we took that right down to its bones and repurposed it with our best manufacturing thinking, which is the mod lines that we have in there that are very flexible, that'll make the Hummer and the Hummer SUV, and then the Silverado, the Sierra, and everything all the way to our Cruise A100 Origin. And so that's just the beginning. So, when you plan that and engineer it, 3 years ago before anybody else, you can do all of that and you can do it very fast.
Mm-hmm. Mark, you said that if you had the extra dollar, you'd put it into battery development. Why is General Motors developing batteries, not just saying, Panasonic make us batteries or CATL make us batteries, or, you know what I mean? It's just, it seems...
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it goes back to, again, 3 years ago when we, a different meeting, where we sat in the room and said, who are we as a car company, or I shouldn't say a car company, but a vehicle OEM would probably be the best phrase for that. Who are we when we make this transformation? Right now we're really good at ICE engines. We're really good at body shops. We're really good at styling. We don't want to lose some of that. Those are our competitive advantages. But we have to go and do both ICE engines and cell chemistries for the time being, transforming to a company that does software, batteries, and cells and chemistry. And so we decided that's who we are as as a competitive advantage, vertically integrating those big chunks of the business so that we can stay in the lead on those and do it very quickly. So we facilitize that at the Tech Center in Warren on the battery and cell piece of that, and that's how you do it.
Mark, I got a chance to look at the Lyriq earlier this year. They took me on a walk around all that. One of the things that stood out to me is 0 carryover parts. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's ever happened in the history of the industry before, where an automaker went totally clean sheet, and I mean totally clean sheet. You guys always want to save on CapEx investment and stuff and use as many parts out of the parts bin as possible, right? Why did you decide this time to say, nope, clean sheet all the way?
Well, that's a great question, John. I think the C8 had one carryover. I think it was the sunroof, or not the sunroof, but the garage door opener, I believe, on that, or something funny, right? That Judge mentions. Maybe it was the target top latch or something. I don't know. It wasn't. So we had one on the C8.
Okay.
But this one was, to your point, really strategic. At the same time, we were developing the strategy for EVs. We really had a clean sheet of paper for Cadillac, and we went to the board and talked about sort of dipping our toe into good things for Cadillac, or really getting behind it and doing it the right way, and doing it all the way to a halo vehicle like the Celestiq, which we'll show here in the not too distant future. That strategy is a portfolio strategy, but it's also a bomb row strategy. So.
And just so our viewers know, bomb is bill of materials. We're not talking about bombing.
No. Thank you, John. No, in no way that.
Yeah.
So it's our bill of material for Cadillac. And if you look at the way GM did this for a long time, not forever, but for a long time, when it wasn't quite what we wanted it to be, we leveraged things from other parts of the company, to your point, that were maybe less cost, did the job okay, but didn't make Cadillac special. And so Mike Simcoe and Sharon Gauchi and the whole design team went at it with our engineers, by the way, who really wanted to do this. And we engineered things right down, and you would have noticed this, to the knurled knobs, to the the turn signals, to the steering wheel haptic actuation on the spokes. It just went right down to the detail. And if you look at the Lyriq, there's a beautiful side panel on the doors, that you don't look at all the time, which when you open the car, it actually shows light through a laser etched pattern that is absolutely beautiful. And so we really went at this with a very purposeful redesign of everything for Cadillac, and that we paired that up with the move to EVs. But we started it with cars like the Blackwings and then the Escalade, and now we move into the electrification of Cadillac, which is really where we can go crazy with the design language, which I think you'll be very pleasantly surprised.
So speaking of Cadillac, historically Cadillac has had a rather mature buyer base. I mean, the stats seem to bear that out. So you're going to that customer base with a whole different type of vehicle. I mean, Lyriq looks beautiful. It's just, a sensational looking car, but electricity rather than gasoline. Mm-hmm. How do you make people realize that this is what they should be doing, and this is what Cadillac is all about?
I think it's got to start with the product, and we talked a little bit about that. So instead of sharing things with other divisions and other bill of materials within GM, we share things in design, direction, and execution within Cadillac, and there's no reason why we can't do that. And so the Cadillacs you'll see a familiar screen, beautifully integrated horizontal screen that is similar to the Escalade, but not exactly the same execution, obviously because of size of the vehicle and the buyer. And so it's sort of the next gen of that. And you'll see those continually evolve. And that's everything that we have technology-wise will start in Cadillac. And we made that decision when we put Super Cruise into the CT6 at the time for Cadillac. And we said we're going to bring Cadillac back home, and we're going to really go at Cadillac. And that was really those decisions and when they were made. And so we really have a different naming strategy for Cadillac. It's not alphanumeric names anymore. It's real names.
Yeah, thank you for that, by the way.
Yeah. So yeah, and so we want to take things out of Cadillac that were really good, and there's a lot of them, and we want to sprinkle in what's new, technology-wise, and for new buyers, and grow the brand. And by the way, the strategy is beginning to pay off with the cars and the trucks and the SUVs. So Cadillac's got some serious momentum right now, which is great. And that's been a long decline, as you know. So we're seeing it starting to happen, and we haven't even started selling the Lyriq quite yet. So tremendous interest in the car, which is great. I think the brand needs a statement car, which we'll have. And then we'll fill in the rest of the portfolio at different price points, and they will be different buyers. I think if we looked at the interest that we have in the Lyriq so far, about 70% of those people haven't bought a Cadillac. So that's pretty neat. And then I think it's about the same percentage on the Hummer haven't stepped into a GMC GM showroom. So, we're going to hit the mark with some of these things that bring new customers in, and that's what we have to do.
Mark, let's go back to the battery a little bit. I mean, we all know the importance of it. You guys think it's so important, you actually branded it Ultium. In your mind, what sets your battery strategy apart from anybody else's?
That's a great question. I think, again, the vehicles that it yields, you just can't do. The battery sets apart things like doing a midgate on a new Silverado EV. We can get the cowl down. We can get a package that's actually, bigger than some of the full-size trucks, but it doesn't look that way. We can do four-wheel steering. We can do air ride. We can do all that stuff. But we also can do things like a Hummer, right? Which is, we can get about 100 miles of range in about 10 minutes on that charge. We can do, 400 miles on the different variants of our BET architecture. We can do 300 plus on the Lyriq and the BEV3. We can do more than that if we want to. The flexibility is the big thing. We can, Mike Simcoe says we have a blank sheet of paper design-wise on EVs, and that's a huge deal, right? Because people still buy vehicles out of the passion of what that vehicle represents to them. I don't care the price point. I don't care what it is, but it's got to be aspirational. It's got to be a reflection of who I am. And, that doesn't go away. And I think this opens the doors for a tremendous set of design choices. So that's one of them. I think the ride and handling piece is a big one. And I'm not sure that you can get that with a retrofitted architecture because it's not optimized for that. And so it gets into what are you doing at the wheels, at the knuckles? What are you doing on a wheelbase? Where's the center of gravity? Those are all really important things. And if you're doing something from the ground up, you can get H points that are very low for low roof vehicles. You can get H points that are very high for, our battery electric trucks like the Hummer. And you get things in between like the Silverado and the new Sierra. And you can do crossovers like the Equinox. And the Equinox and, the Lyriq are BEV3 Ultium architectures. And so there's a ton of that at the vehicle level. The other piece of it is at the business level. And I would say our pack and architecture for cells allows us to go continually improve our chemistries. And you can actually backwardly put modules of new chemistry packs within the old pack of an Ultium platform. It also allows us to do things like a wireless battery control system. And so we eliminate, up to 70 or 80% of the wires that are used to connect batteries, cells, and modules within a pack. We've eliminated all of that. We've up integrated into our electric motors. Some of the things you'll see if you open the hood of other electric vehicles, you'll see massive orange wires that are high voltage wires that connect everything. We've up integrated a lot of that into our electric motors that are ours, right? And so I think the vehicle integration piece of that and the vertical integration piece of it are huge advantages for us. And the scale piece of it, now we can do cells like the prismatics that are in China for CATL. We can use those cells. We can use the pouch-based cells here. We can use solid state. We can do whatever we want in that architecture and Ultium platform. And that's something I believe is a huge competitive advantage, especially when you get into scale and globalization. So it's a pretty compelling business story when you look at it. And I would say our supply chain piece of it is a huge advantage for us too, because we announced today the Glencore piece of that, for cobalt out of Australia. We've done the POSCO piece of this for the CAM, for the cathode. We're just hitting every piece of that supply chain. We're doing it in volume, and so we're not reliant on sort of the episodic snowflakes in a particular product, but rather here's the whole platform, here's the volume, and here's the supply chain that can be very robust when you do that.
Mark, how did you get the internal know-how to be able to do all of this? I mean, as you said earlier, I mean, you're a car company and everybody knows what a car company is. And what you just described is more of an advanced technology company.
Well, it is. Yeah, it's a great point, Gary, because when we started making these decisions, if you remember, we restructured all of product. I had a little different job then, but we restructured all of product development, and we took what was a siloed powertrain ICE organization headquartered in Pontiac and integrated that into the vehicle itself in Warren. Big emotional decision. It's been that way for many years in GM, but that was the beginning of being able to share software resources across ICE and EV, and then also begin doing things like Super Cruise and Ultra Cruise across a new global B electrical architecture. And so the genesis of those big things, really, we were hiring, restructuring, and making efficient the whole integration of software, electronics, and some hardware, because there's really not space for people who are just an electrical engineer or just a mechanical engineer. Most everything in the vehicle is going to be electromechanical. Most everything. And that's a hard thing for a lot of people who think of car companies as, sort of the Midwest Rust Belt to understand, because they weren't in it before and they don't see what we're doing now because, lots of different reasons. The pandemic's one of them, but it's hard to see what we're actually doing with people. And I tell you, 60+ % of the talent at GM now is 5 years or less, which is really exciting. And we did that, we did that here in the last 3 years.
Yeah, that's an amazing statistic. So many new employees at the company. Mark, back to batteries for a minute. We've got some questions here from our audience. Lewis Withrow and David O'Neill both wanted to know, what about lithium ion LFP batteries? You're talking about low cost ones. And then you're going to be building a lot of EVs in China. China seems to really be pushing battery swapping. And so let's see, it was Pete Nicholas also wanted to know about that, battery swapping. So LFP and battery swapping, what can you tell us?
Well, LFP, we're actually using some of that with our partners in China. So, we sell a lot of EVs. Okay, so we did we did about 500,000 in 2021. So people forget that. So when you say, well, we haven't started production of some of these things yet, don't forget what we do globally, which is we're not. So we'll get great ideas on batteries and chemistry and ideas that we'll be able to do very, very quickly and test those and develop those. We can actually make coupons of cells at our tech center in Warren in R&D. We actually can produce cells, and we can bring those across the railroad tracks in Warren to our validation, our battery validation and cell validation and pack validation site to see the duty cycle of those very rapidly. And so we're just finishing a manufacturing lab there too. So that's almost done and ready to be online. But the actual cell itself, we've been doing that for a couple of years now, which is, our starting points on chemistry. So we'll take good ideas from everywhere. We've also got a thing called GM Ventures, which is where we invest, like an investment banker in GM, into new companies and new ventures of battery chemistry that we think have promise. And so we do stakes in those companies and work with them to productionize an idea that they have and see if it really works, and validate it or not. And so, hey, it's not one, it's everything. And I think the agility that we have to have built in to develop and validate those is pretty high.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty high.
And battery swapping, you guys looking into that at all?
Yeah, there's I don't know if you remember this, John, you might, but there was a company called Better Place, yeah. Right? Remember that?
I do.
And so they made a big push for that in Australia at the time. And they were going to set up battery swapping things, right? So that instead of recharging, you would, pull in, you'd swap the battery and you'd be on your way. Sounds like a neat idea. I think it's really hard to do that unless you've got scale and industry buy-in to common hacks and configurations that make that work. And so while you may say that one company or one set of cars can do that, I can't really see how that becomes common from an engineering and usability standpoint across an industry. Maybe someday, but it's a pretty tough, and maybe it's within the sort of the homegrown Chinese companies that they have that agreement and they can do that. Maybe that's how they get scale, but I can't see it in a market like the United States quite yet.
Sort of in the battery charging sphere. Last year, General Motors announced that it's investing $750 million in level 2 charging. So if we go back into the history of the auto industry, I mean, it wasn't like car companies set up gas stations. This is, in effect, you guys are doing that. I mean, what's behind the thinking? Why is this important for General Motors to be involved with?
Well, I think if you look at some of the friction and pain points that we have in some of the charge systems that are out there today in the United States, there's a couple of things. And if you drive an electric car, I'm driving a Bolt right now. And if you look at that charge network that's available on our app, places where it'll plan a route for where you can charge along the way. If you're going somewhere really far away, it'll tell you how much time it'll take, and it'll tell you what the company is that has the charger. It's a spotty success of whether that charger works. It's in a safe location, and it's not occupied. There's all those things, right, that people have to deal with. And I've dealt with quite a few of them, frankly, and it's not a great experience. And so we're going to enlist our dealer footprint, which, we've got about 4,000 dealers across the United States in all different kinds of places. And those dealers know so well the municipality that they live in and where the best sites for those charging stations would be that are safe, that are lit, that may have things around them that people, can use a restroom or buy something they want on the trip or whatever. And so we're going to leverage that dealer knowledge to be able to put those into those kind of places that make it really convenient for people. And that's the thinking behind it. And, I don't think gas stations, when those began, had any of those problems. I think they're pretty nice places. I remember people having uniforms and ties and coming out on a full service basis and wiping your, I don't remember that personally, but I read about it. That was a very good experience, right? And we're trying to do that again. And we enlisted our design resources, our aesthetic design resources, to actually help design really beautiful places to charge your car. So we're doing that too. So it's a whole ecosystem we're working on, and I think it's a good thing. And we're not going to be exclusive either, but we are going to make them beautiful and accessible and pleasant for people.
Mark, we got another great topic here from Denisel Auto is one of our viewers. Jim Farley is splitting Ford into two, ICE and BEV. Luca de Meo, CEO of Renault, is talking. Maybe they're going to do the same thing. Carlos Tavares at Stellantis said, no way, you're creating an HR nightmare, human resource nightmare. What is your thinking? Do you have to split the company, or how are you going to work it?
I think, well, we said we looked at this about a year and a half ago, and we really looked at it hard. But we restructured in the way that I described earlier, so that we have really good engineers that can do lots of different things. I think that's a really healthy company. And so whether you're doing the next Duramax on a heavy duty truck, or you're working on, the Equinox and the architecting of a new BEV3/Ultium platform, and you're doing a new electric motor, or you're doing whatever, the connected services is a big part of this too. And so it's hard for me to understand how you can separate really good software and creative engineers from, propulsion, I guess. And our internal combustion engine portfolio will carry something called Ultify, which is our connected vehicle and advanced, it used to be called Global B, but it's our new advanced electrical architecture. And we will have the capability to do even more over the air than what we do today, and things like 5G and moving things to the cloud. And so it's sort of an open book of services and fun things that our customers can get. At the end of the day, the car they have today will be better tomorrow. It'll be better next month. And so we want to enable all of that, ICE or EV. And with things like OnStar, we've been doing OnStar for a long time. And so we've got the biggest connected car park in the industry out there. And so we want to leverage that, and we want to leverage the safety piece of it. We want to leverage things like Super Cruise. We were first with that. The next version of that, Ultra Cruise, will have up to 95% of the driving experiences covered in an optional supervised autonomous way. And we've got a dual path with that, with our AV piece of it, with Cruise. And so Cruise is now giving rides out in San Francisco and delivering goods for Walmart and Phoenix. And if you look at separating those things, I just don't think from a business and growth and expertise standpoint, it serves our employees very well, or it serves our investors and our customers very well. And that's the way we looked at this when we looked at it for quite a while. And I got to say, I want everybody motivated. Whatever General Motors project they're working on, I don't want them to feel like they're over here doing something that is old and not the cool new shiny thing. I want everybody doing the best things for any propulsion system we put into production, and the connected vehicle software as well, and the whether it's AV or EV or whatever. So I think we've got a great when we restructured, I think we've got a great synergy in place, and we can move things very fast.
Sticking with the organization, Mark, you've mentioned a couple times vertical integration. If we were to go back in time, say 10, 15 years, vertical integration was, we don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. Now it seems to be in vogue almost. I mean, what's the thinking behind that?
I got to say, I lived through a lot of that. And yeah, I'm showing my age maybe, but you don't have to vertically integrate everything. Our suppliers come with a lot of great innovation and ideas, and I never want to, talk small about that, because it's huge. Okay, things like our supervised vision system on Super Cruise. Our suppliers do great things for us. On the other hand, again, who are you as an OEM, right? And what do you want to be best at, and what's going to separate everything for our customers and someone who buys a General Motors vehicle? We want to be really good at that. We want to be the best, and we want to be very fast. And so I think the vertical integration pieces of that are reflective of that thinking and what really matters for us for the long term. I don't think, I can remember when interiors were the in vogue thing to outsource. Remember that?
Yeah.
So engineers were hired out of OEMs, put into suppliers, and that didn't work very well, at all. And so it ended up having 2 and 3 times the engineering of what it should have done, doing it right once. And, I also don't think chasing labor markets for engineers is such a hot idea. And that went on for a while too. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
So engineers need to have experience. They need to be really good and passionate about what they do. They need to be well paid, just like anybody that does something in the auto industry, which is a very complex business. Respect for people who do our castings, our die castings, put together our vehicles. I'm okay with paying people for the hard work they do if they're doing it really well, no problem. And so I think that thinking is the way we think about it.
Mark, as you said, a lot of what GM is doing right now with the EVs is kind of under the radar to the general public, certainly. In fact, there's people who think GM is dragging its feet or deliberately dragging its ramp up of EVs. So Aurelio Ray, another viewer of ours, said, bring us up to speed over the next few years. Can you give us some sort of idea of the ramp up?
Sure.
23, 24, 25, 26, where are you guys going to be, volume and all that kind of thing?
Absolutely. Well, we've said, we made a couple of pretty big, really cool statements publicly that I guess you have to make them over and over again. But, I think if you look at our volumes here over the next few years, we're going to be capable of doing, millions of vehicles. And so that's really a reflection of our commitment of, $35 billion. So this is not small stuff. It's big stuff. And the capacitization of that, to be very honest, is huge. So if you look at that, let's see, new EVs here will be about 2 million globally through 2025 for us. So that's a lot of vehicles, and I think that's a big commitment. So I think that's really important. I think the number of vehicles we have coming is very important. So if you look at part of that 2025 commitment of more than 2 million vehicles, we'll have 600,000 EV pickup trucks in North America. We'll have 400,000 EVs in calendar 22 through 23. But it's really the number of variants too is extremely important, right? And so we've got a lot of vehicles coming here, and 30 here in the next few years. So that's a big number. In addition to that, I would say that they're coming fast, and I mentioned some of the development times of these vehicles after we got the core Ultium architectures done. And so we pulled a lot of things ahead. So I think that's important to note too. And I would say in the next, I'll give you the lineup here. Hummer's already in production. Lyric just started production. Then we go into Silverado here. And then we're going to show the Equinox and Blazer here later this year in full form. That'll start after that. And the Sierra out of Factory Zero. The A100 will start production here very shortly too, which is our cruise fully autonomous vehicle. We'll start delivering that. Bright Drop, our vans, our electric vans, are already in production, and we delivered the first 1,000 or so to FedEx. More to come on that. We've got a lot of people signed up for that van, which is very exciting for us. So, on all fronts, we're doing that. I should say at the same time, we're launching right now the mid-cycle enhancements, which is really focused on interiors and some exterior, but the interiors of our new T1 pickup trucks are launching right now. So that's Silverado, Sierra, light and heavy duty after that. And then we get into some of the SUVs and the mid-cycles of those as well. And then, we're also doing things on our mainline crossover portfolios too, with mid-cycle enhancements on the Cadillacs for XT4, XT5. We're doing it all, and we're doing it all every couple of months. So we're relaunching the Bolt right now, by the way, out of Orion. So that'll be some pretty good volume for us here, 20,000+. We'll see what happens there. It could be more because of gas prices and the price point that car hits. So I think this is. I'm not sure. We can always do more, but I would say that the place is loaded and everybody's pretty excited.
Well, Mark, you're being very aggressive with these plans. I've got to ask you though. EVs take more semiconductors than ICEs. Is this a speed bump, the shortage of semiconductors, or have you guys got a way around that?
We have no silver bullets. However, we work below the tier 1 component supplier that has the chips in it to get access to chips, which I think some people don't. They put the pressure on the supplier of the component that uses it. And so we've got a pretty deep tier 2 and tier 3 approach to this, which is working okay. Look, the suppliers are trying extremely hard. The demand is not met for anybody. We do see a little bit of easing of that, but we're not going to let off the heat on our electric vehicles. So we're really going to we're going to pour the resources to those, which we are. So anything can happen. Who would have thought the tragedy in Ukraine would be happening right now, but it is, and it's very sad. And so the geopolitical stability is a big factor of that too, Gary. It's not. I don't think it's just chips. It's supply chain, and I think Bob Carter said that today publicly, and he's right.
Mm-hmm. So, Mark, let's talk a little about retailing EVs. A lot of talk in the industry of having a direct model, some sort of hybrid. I mean, traditional automakers are going to stay with their dealers. What's your outlook, though? How do you think this is going to go? And again, I want to mention one of our viewers here. I don't have that name. So what do you think? Are you going to go to a direct model?
Well, this is a very interesting conversation that I don't usually get to have. So I appreciate the question from whoever submitted it. Maybe it was you, John. I don't know, but it's a great question because if you look at the polarizing nature of what people think, whether it's either direct or it's not, and so you say, well, okay, what's wrong, or what are the weaknesses of direct versus dealer only, no direct. And there's pros and cons within each one of those from a customer standpoint, but I would say in general, and you saw some of our competitors that have direct models thinking about how they can have dedicated service stations now, right? Okay, so there's a service element of this that we have, and it's invested, and the dealers have invested heavily in. I'd also say, this is still the biggest purchase right underneath the house for a lot of people, and so there's still a lot of people that want to buy their vehicle from someone that they know and have bought from before, which is really good. And typically that person's really good at customer service. And these are entrepreneurs. These people know how to sell and repair and service vehicles for our customers. And they do a really good job at that. What we are focused on is there are people also that say, I don't want to go to a dealer. Let's be realistic. And a lot of those people, we have to give them a choice. And so if you looked at what we've done with the Cadillac dealer network as an example, we've put in a new system with a partner called Techion that enables people to buy the way they want to buy. And so if they want to buy direct, the dealer will deliver that car to their house, and they can buy it and then transact all online if that's what they want to do. They want to go see it, and they want to see what the colors look like, and they want to touch it and feel it. They can go do that at a dealer, and that's great. And when something happens, or they get in an accident, or they need service, they go to a dealer. And that's a great competitive advantage because we don't have to build anything. We don't have to We don't have to do anything. Our dealers are lifeblood into that customer experience. And so what our job is, the way I see it, is we got to remove the friction points for the dealers on them being better at doing what they're doing and less spent on things that the customer can't see, or it's not a benefit for the customer. And so we're going to give them the tools to eliminate waste in their business and get them, even more focused, and use that as a great tool for both the dealer and ourselves to get people into EVs. And I think you'll see it with the Hummers. We're not, you can't go to a GMC dealer and pick your Hummer. We're doing that pretty direct, and the dealer delivers it, but there's no inventory on those lots. I think
isn't that the key, Mark? Isn't that the real key? It's not so much a direct model as it is eliminating all that inventory. But the direct, and I don't know if you guys are doing it not, will I, as a customer who wants to buy online, interface with General Motors instead of the dealer?
Well, it's both, because our sites are connected. Okay. And so if you want to go to Cadillac, okay, and build your own vehicle, you can go build your own vehicle on the Cadillac site. We'll tell you where there's inventory and like how close it is to what you want, if there's inventory, or you can generate your own order, okay, and have that built. So it's both, which is really great, right? And then the finance piece of it comes along with it, with GMF, and you can buy insurance through OnStar. You can do a lot of stuff, and you can do it all in any way you want to do it, which is really the best model from our standpoint. And to floor plan a bunch of cars on a dealership lot is going to be up to the dealer on which models sell that way. And that's great, because it won't be one way or the other. And the dealer, it's up to the dealer, and they're fantastic business people. So they will figure out what the best way to do that.
Mark, do you see not only the EV phenomenon, but the situation we've gone through for the past couple of years, where there's been limited supply of vehicles, that there will be more build to order, that people will say, yeah, we got to do that now?
I do, and the reason will be consumer preference as well. People don't mind waiting a reasonable amount of time for their car, and the reason why I say that is because our dealers and ourselves, we've enabled this for our dealers to see a dealer or a production site of the order number of whether it's been built or it's in progress or what stage of that it's in. And so the dealers have really done a wonderful job of actually selling into the pipeline of when those vehicles are produced by order number. They're on the truck, they're on the way to the dealer. They can tell the customer can see it. But the dealers have changed. That whole thing has changed through the pandemic, where they're selling things they don't even have, which is really great, right? So it doesn't sit on their lot for 20 days or whatever. It's here. Oh, by the way, your car's here, right? That's a pretty good experience, right? And either the dealer delivers it to them, or they want to come to the dealer and do the transaction there. Again, they can do whatever they want, and that's a great thing.
Mark, you touched on this a little bit before, but Steven Steyer wanted to know your sourcing of raw materials for batteries in electric vehicles. You really seem to be focusing on raw materials now more than I ever remember General Motors getting into it. Can you talk about your strategy? And he also wants to know about green mining and recycling.
Yep. Well, I could spend a lot of time on the last two topics, but on the sourcing piece of this for raw materials, you've seen us methodically announce different pieces of the battery, from a raw material standpoint, and partnerships and sourcing patterns that are global, but not, in places that we don't want to do business. I'll just leave it at that. And so, whether it's Quebec with POSCO on the CAM piece of this that I mentioned, or the Glencore announcement that we made today, which will be some of that coming out of the cobalt piece of it coming out of Australia. That's the strategy. And we're deep partnerships, and we can do that because, again, of an Ultium high volume strategy. And so people want to be our partners, and we want them to be our partners with a strategy like that. So it's not episodic, and they can plan their business and be very efficient in it. And we can get, reliable, very competitively priced things to make batteries. And by the way, the battery chemistries are going to change. We decreased cobalt by about 60% off of our previous generation of batteries. So this is a bit of a moving target, but when you get into these volumes, it's going to be high volumes. So I would say that strategy will continue to unfold as we make more of those announcements. We're actually mining under some of the salt beds in the Western United States. You've seen that. And so the green mining piece of it is part of our ESG and sustainability play. And so whoever we choose as partners for these has got to have an eye on it. And if it's not in their production system today, it has to be something that they're going to do, they have a plan to do, and they're interested in doing. So I'll leave it at that, which is really good. And that's a very positive thing.
Mark, General Motors announced that it's working with PG&E on vehicle to grid. Mm-hmm. What is this all about? Why is this important? Who cares about that?
Yeah, it's really cool, actually, Gary, because this is something that I'm personally very excited about. Because if you think about power companies and you think about the infrastructure that we have, and whether I always get you always read you read things like, well, the grid can't handle all of this. Actually, the grid can handle all of this, and this is one of the reasons why it can. We have a lot of data off of the electric vehicles that we sell from how they're used and what people like to do and when they charge and where they charge. And, if you look at the industry right now, it's over 70% of the people will top off their electric vehicle at home. Okay. And so if you think about the energy storage as electric vehicles come online, and you think about the energy storage of each one of the vehicles that is doing that on off-peak hours, right? And you think of one of the biggest problems that energy companies have, which is the massive capitalization required to handle peak loads. They might not have to do that. And so we're going to look at the ecosystem of a customer being able to take their stored energy and sell it back to the grid to reduce their energy costs and reduce the peak output, or take energy that they need on a two-way basis. So the option of using the energy from your car in your home is one of those. The option of taking excess energy that you're not using and selling it back to the grid is another way to look at that. And then the charge times, telling your car to charge only on non-peak times is something the power companies are extremely interested in as well, particularly now that the pandemic has changed the hybrid workplace that we all work in. So you'll have people sitting at home, like right now, I have a Bolt sitting in my garage being charged. I don't need it to be sitting there on a plug necessarily because the car is charged. I could be selling that back, or just taking it off of the grid, or the power company should have the ability to use some of that for if they need it, if it's a really hot day, right? And so that's the thinking behind it. It's a really great thing, particularly with PG&E, because as you know, they're forced in very dry conditions where lightning or forest fires could be enabled, and they will take down certain parts of that area so they don't have that risk of fires. And so what do you do with people who are in that situation? Well, being able to use your car to power your personal environment is a very attractive thing, and it's a very attractive thing for PG&E to handle the peaks. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Interesting. Hadn't thought about it that way.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. It's very exciting, actually. It's very exciting for me because people tend to be thinking about it digitally, right? Well, it's either I'm charging my car or I'm not, or I'm going to use all the energy in my car all the time, or I'm not, or I'm going to use it until it's gone, and then I'm going to try and fill it up. Not so much with the data that we have on how people are using in their electric vehicle.
Sort of like phones.
Yeah. I've talked
Changed our
to
thinking.
I've talked to a number of the utilities. They're actually very excited about electric cars for exactly the reason that you're talking about, Mark. In fact, some of the local ones have told me this might prevent them from having to build yet another generating plant, at least in the short term.
I think that's true. I really do. Especially, no more coal-fired ones, right?
Right. Definitely, they're out.
Yeah, they're out. So,
hey, you mentioned the Bolt. In fact, I was going through some EPA numbers today and found out it's one of the most efficient EVs out on the market right now. The EPA has it rated at 29 kilowatt hours per 100 miles. The only thing that I found so far that have beat it are the Tesla 3 and Y. They beat it by 1 kilowatt hour. So kudos to you guys. But here's my real question. What are the lessons that you learned from the Bolt? I mean, you had a lot of problems with it, but you guys haven't given up. You're putting it back in production. But as you step back and evaluate the whole program, what are some of the lessons you take away from it?
if you go back to when we introduced the Bolt, and people forget we sort of beat the we beat the small car Tesla to market, which was really great. Again, a demonstration of our speed. The car really hasn't had a lot of problems. It's had one problem, and it really was a manufacturing cell problem. And so, I was deeply involved with this, as I am all of our things that we need to address and take care of our customers from a safety and customer satisfaction standpoint. But the way we were handling the cells was not something that we would like to see in our new Ultium plants. And so all the learnings coming out of the pouch cells in those plants is now very much changed for what we're doing in Lordstown, Lansing, and Spring Hill. So I would also say it's a different battery as well. And I won't go into the chemistry stuff because it's a little tedious. But at the end of the day, how we handle cells, how we manufacture packs is very, very much part of the lessons learned. But I would also say the way we went to market with the Bolt was a company that didn't believe battery electric vehicles were going to become mainstream. And I say that very transparently and very clearly because we did not get behind the car from a marketing and retail standpoint. We had a lot of people that didn't believe in it, sort of a self-fulfilling thing. And that's not the way we should have done that. And so lessons learned on that piece of it as well. Very little advertising, very little awareness of what the car could do and what it was, other than, within the EV media community. And, to be honest, the market was very different when we introduced the car too. The acceptability and the readiness to buy an EV was not what it is today. Having said that, the Bolt EV community is one of the most loyal, passionate communities that we have in Chevrolet. And it's almost Corvette-like in terms of the passion for the car. And that's something that we really want to make sure that happens across all of our products that are EV. And I think it can. And people are, I go to the site a lot. I got to say, it's the Bolt EV and EUV owners site. And they have pictures of the Bolt being transported from Orion to the dealerships. And then they go to the dealership and they want to buy the new car. And this happened right as we were launching the mid-cycle enhancement of the Bolt and the new Bolt EUV with Super Cruise. And so, unfortunate timing, it's the way it is. Did the right things, trying to do it as fast as we can with care and do it once and do it right, and then move on and relaunch the car, which is what we're doing right now.
Real good. Mark, we've come up right on an hour with your time here, and I know that's what you allotted for us. Thanks a million. This has been a terrific discussion here. We're going to get the word out, and our viewers will too, about what GM is doing with its EV efforts here. It's been really a pleasure talking to you about it.
Thank you so much, both of you, because I don't get the opportunity for, in your show, and you too, give me the opportunity to talk in depth about what our strategy is and what we're doing and the excitement we have and our capability. And I just, I really thank you for that, because it doesn't come to me every day with that opportunity. So hopefully I met the expectation of what you guys wanted.
Oh, absolutely.
Sure,
and then some.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Nice
Get back
seeing
to
you.
work,
Hey.
Mr.
Yeah,
Royce.
I know. Good seeing you. Good to see you guys. Yeah.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Autoline After Hours is brought to you by Bridgestone Tires, solutions for your journey.
Visit our website, Autoline.tv, where you can watch us live Thursday afternoons. Get your daily fix with Autoline Daily and in-depth analysis and interviews with Autoline This Week. There's all that and much more at Autoline.tv.